Well, a couple of months ago, I did a feature on the must-listen SEIYUU artists for people getting into male SEIYUU music, and I feel that now we need to do the same thing, but for 2D groups. So in this episode, let's talk about the royalty among 2D groups, the two ones that broke and set records in the SEIYUU industry, let's say in the 2D music industry. We are going to talk about Quartet Night and Trigger in this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I'm your host Vanessa, and in this episode let's talk about must-listen to the groups. This is the royalty edition because these two groups have set records and set a standard for every single group that followed, and also beat records and set their own awesome achievements as well. So we are going to talk about Quartet Night and Trigger, the two groups that were the first to get number ones on Oricon's charts. So now you are listening to this episode and you think, well, but Vanessa, I don't know what are the Oricon charts. Japan tracks music sales and CDs across CDs and let's say many other categories of entertainment in their official Japanese chart. It is a sales chart, so the more a CD sells, the higher a CD is on their chart. Or if it is a stream chart, it is the highest the stream numbers are, the highest the artist will be. This is a fairly simple concept, but some of you may not have been born in an era in which charts were really a massive thing, and people paid a lot of attention to that. It was usually a make or break to understand if an artist was really good or not. Nowadays it's not so much because indie artists sometimes, for example, don't sell a lot, but they have a really long career, whereas the others that may sell a lot may disappear out of nowhere. So back in the day it used to be a factor to take into account if an artist would survive in the music industry or not. Right now it's more of an indication of the star power they have or the fandom that they have backing them up. So Oricon has a ton of charts there. The two most important are the singles and the albums chart, in which everyone is ranking for those. They have specialty charts in which you can have the anime only, in which it's only music featured in anime series. You have one focused only in international artists. So we have those split sections, but we have the main ones, the singles and the albums chart, in which basically feature all the artists. Japanese artists, international artists, all in the same place, as well as SEIYUU units, SEIYUU, and every single other artist in the world. Everyone is on those charts. Which leads me to say, when a SEIYUU artist or a 2D music project really ranks within the top 10, it is impressive, because they are against the biggest artists in the world, popularity-wise, because sales usually equals popularity. Really popular groups will have tons of sales, usually. That's not necessarily something that is directly correlated, but you will assume that 85% of the times that an artist is really high on a chart is because they have either a massive fan base or a really dedicated but small fan base that has a lot of buying power. They buy tons of CDs. In this case, when we look at 2D music projects, and this is the most impressive thing, because what happened here was in 2017, we had not only one, but two SEIYUU units getting number ones on Oricon. Let me just highlight these, because so far, we are in 2025, no male SEIYUU artist has ever reached number one on an Oricon chart. Only two groups by male SEIYUU artists have reached number one first, and then of course many others have managed to get number ones. The Ensemble Stars franchise and Hypnosis Mic franchise, the two are the ones with the most number ones on Oricon's charts right now, but the two first ones that started this trend, let's say, which opened the doors for every other group to actually have more attention, for more people to actually see that yes, 2D music is really good, regardless if you like Utapri, regardless if you like Idolish 7, those two franchises were the ones that opened the doors for everyone else to actually have more eyes on them, and for people to see that, yes, SEIYUU are amazing singers, and yes, 2D music has a ton of quality, sometimes more quality than, let's say with quotation marks, real pop artists. So, what they did was, that night released one of the most iconic CDs in their career, God's Star. To everyone's surprise, God's Star was in number 1 against SHINee, one of the biggest K-pop acts in the world, which is insane. And they were in the height of their popularity, and I feel this is a pivotal moment in their career, and one thing that solidified that Quartet Night was not only the best group in the UTP franchise, by far, there's no discussion whatsoever. Although I have some love for Heavens and Starish, Quartet Night easily has more quality than both of those groups. And this was something that really highlighted the talent here, that SEIYUU were really taking these insanely seriously, and people were finding quality in places that they usually didn't search for quality. And I say this because most people usually had that prejudice of, oh god, this is an anime cover, the music is not really going to be good, this is probably a character song. And I can understand that, because back in the day, and let's say this, because 7 years before these, albums or character songs or anything like that were downright awful. Barely any were genuinely good. There were some times in which some SEIYUU were so good singers that they could actually counter the fact that the songs were so poor, and the character songs actually impressed in some capacity, but that was not the thing. So it makes sense that people were a bit reluctant about even batting an eye when it came to the music. But Quartet Night actually started changing that. And I feel that the UTP franchise, and we've talked about this previously, changed that a little bit. People started to see the phenomenon that actually started with UTP, and that people were actually quite excited about 2D music, so why not try 2D music? More 2D music, we need more. Because there was a demand, but there was only one group when everything started. So back to the topic that I was talking about, Quartet Night getting that number 1 on Oricon's weekly singles chart with God's Star was unbelievable. Not only the album had everything to not chart because it was released in that week in which the chart closes, but also because people were not really thinking, yeah, the album is going to rank really well in front of an established, extremely popular K-pop group in Japan, which, once again, it is insane what happened there. It continues to be one of the most iconic things that happened. I feel that if you want to start, and people usually, when they come across 2D music, they feel and ask, what are the immediate artists that I need to check? Artists that are always recommended, or I like pop music but I don't know where to start. Start with Quartet Night. That's my recommendation. Not only you have the most accessible pop sound ever with them, you also have 4 unique vocals, 4 SEIYUU that have had awesome careers outside of the group as well. Some of them are solo artists, others have had their bands, others had their solo careers, but they were short-lived. But you have tons of experience. That's something that you usually don't have with other 2D groups, in which most of the members have never sang before as solo artists. They eventually end up debuting as solo artists, but just as a result of their performances in that 2D group, and not necessarily they joined the group and they were already artists before doing that. So I feel that having this quality from the get-go for Quartet Night was unbelievably good. So much talent in this group. It's crazy. You have pop that will appeal to the general public. I feel that a big reason why they connected so well with everyone is because their sound is really welcoming. It's easy to understand. Nothing is really too complex. You don't need to actually even pay much attention to the lyrics and think that, oh, maybe I'm missing story or story beats or anything else if I don't understand the lyrics. Enjoy the music for what it is. Sometimes the lyrics tie up with some things tied to the character arcs of each character if you listen to their individual songs. Others, you are just having fun. Honestly, with Quartet Night, you are just having fun. And that's more than enough when it comes to pop music. You don't need something overly complex. We have Quartet Night, of course, doing an amazing job with God's Star. That's the single that I fully recommend you to check. Although Poison Kiss is my favorite song still to this date. That's period there. I'm not even going to discuss that. Poison Kiss was the song that roped me into Quartet Night and made me a fan to this day. And instantly made me think, well, perhaps I don't like the main group in the franchise. I do like the rival one. They ended up not being the rival one. But still, at that time, they felt like the rival one. And I really loved their music, and to this day, I still listen to it really fondly. I feel that if you are trying to get into pop music that is extremely accessible, go to Quartet Night. However, if you feel that you want something a bit more polished in the sense that they don't repeat their sound or they don't repeat phrases of their sound over their music, which is something that Elements Garden does in their music for Quartet Night. If you know a little bit of music composition and pay attention a little bit to the background to their music, usually the synth plays the same old melody in all of their songs, just in a different key or slightly tweaked key or something like that, but it's usually the very same notes almost in all of their songs. But whenever you have an extremely popular song by Quartet Night, you will understand that signature synth sound. You don't have that with Trigger. Don't have a signature sound, they have a signature vibe, which is different. And I like that because we have two different things. If you like a group in which you can get easily familiar with their music, because as soon as you like one, you will enjoy every single other song, Quartet Night is your thing. When you go to Trigger, things are slightly different, because you may like one song and may not like the other, because they don't have a signature sound, they have a signature vibe. And the vibe is that of being sexy and alluring. And they do so without being cheesy, which is something that I commend them, because there are other groups that I love a whole lot. For example, Solids in the Tsuki Pro franchise, they are cheesy about the way they are sexy. I like them, I love them a lot, but I know that why some people do not like them, because they are slightly cheesy in the way they approach sexiness itself. What I'm bringing here, of course, is Regality. The first CD that you should check is the iconic Regality, because it was number 1 on Oricon's charts in 2017 as well, but during the summer. And this was unbelievably good. I feel that to this day, no other 2D group has released an album as impactful as this one. And some of you may start arguing in your head that maybe, Vanessa, you are wrong. That's your opinion, and it is valid. But I feel that this album actually brought a lot of things that were not being done well in the music industry, especially for 2D music groups. They have a sound that is overly professional. They brought different composers to work on their music, which, well, other 2D groups also had. And they also have lyricists that really cater to the vocals. They created music that would make the vocals stand out. So when you arrive to Trigger's Regality, you will find an album that not only went up against BTS, and for you who may be fans of theirs, it was the Love Yourself Her album, the 5th one, or 5th mini album, was against Trigger's Regality, and we also had Sawano Hiroyuki in the chart, so 2 heavyweights in the chart against Trigger, and Trigger beat them, which I honestly didn't think this album would ever top this chart. I was following the daily updates, and midway through that week I felt that maybe Trigger were not going to get number 1. It would be impossible when they went up against a group that was on the rise in 2017, BTS, and a composer who had been working with Shingeki no Kyojin and was getting massive, who in this case is Sawano Hiroyuki, was also on the chart at the same time. So it was a ton of pressure in these, not to say that, once again, Quartet Night didn't have that pressure. SHINee are massive in Japan, and they were massive back then. So this was crazy how they got that number 1. how the fandom also rallied behind Trigger to see them get that number one. How people start to get really invested in the story because this album dropped at around the same time that, and are going to be spoilers to the Idolish 7 story, that time in which Trigger actually had to disappear from the public eye. People wanted to rally behind them to actually teach a lesson to Zul and the production company behind Zul as well. And people actually were invested in the story. They were buying the CD as if they were supporting the group within the story. It was something that had never happened before. It was an emotional story beat for those who were fans of the franchise and were playing the game, the mobile game, and following the story. And people were not aware, most people that were not in the fandom were not even aware of that. They just came across the album, felt it was really emotional, saw the people rally behind it, saying that they should get number one because they deserved after what happened in the story, and people rallied behind, bought the album, and the album rose to number one. That's unprecedented. People, even from different fandoms, getting behind a group that they usually don't follow just to support a fan base that was rallying behind a really emotional story is really unique. I feel that nothing has happened after this that replicates what happened here. This was crazy. You didn't only have Trigger fans here, you have all fans of all the groups in the Idolish 7 franchise behind the group supporting them. You had people from other fandoms joining in to support the group. It was really beautiful to see this happening. This type of togetherness that usually you don't have because people tend to be really stupid when it comes to the groups. So it was really interesting to see everyone rallying up behind the group and to actually try to set a record. You guys, if you actually bought the album back at that time, you helped set a record. You helped make history. So yeah, if you are just trying to get into Trigger or get into pop music, Trigger is an amazing choice for you. You will find plenty of different pop tunes. They are more of an EDM-driven type of pop group. They have really strong dance songs, a bit like how Quartet Night have, but the style that Quartet Night has is more regal. Although Trigger has the regal vibe for regality, it's in the title, their sound leans more on the sexy, and for Quartet Night it leans more on the regal. So that those are two different vibes that really coexist in a really awesome way. Let's say pop music, if you start with these two groups, you start really well. Not only you have tons of variety, you will have two different groups that will make you think, am I a type of fan that likes more when a group has a signature sound? Or do I like groups that have a vibe that I enjoy, even if they change music genres with each song? That's a really good thing to start with, because you will start to understand what type of music and how do you like your music, especially with 2D groups. Because there are groups that are all vibes, and there are groups that are all about the signature sound or a signature style of singing. So you will understand those slight differences across groups if you start with these two ones. That's the best way to do that. I started with pop music, and I'm a rock fan, so you can feel that this is a good introduction for anyone, because if I am a rock fan and I came across pop music, and I ended up enjoying the pop music that was presented with, and then started searching for other artists, it's a good sign that people starting to get into 2D music should start with pop. It's accessible. You will get a gist of what are the skills that each SEIYUU can have. You will understand that there's a ton of talent in the SEIYUU industry. By far, one of the most impressive entertainment industries in the world is the Japanese one, and especially connected to SEIYUU. It is unreal how talented they are, and you will see when you listen to God's Star by Quartet Night or even Regality by Trigger. But I can recommend many other albums for you to check. Once again, I said Poison Kiss by Quartet Night is an amazing song. If you go to Trigger, you have tons of awesome music. Places is one of the best singles, for example, by the group. You have tons of awesome music, tons of amazing vocals. You have a variety of pop music that you can explore. If you start with Quartet Night and Trigger, you are really well fed as a newcomer to the music. And you are checking two groups that are considered right now as royalty because they set records and they open the doors for other 2D groups to actually reach those higher places on the charts, for 2D groups and 2D music projects to be more serious about the music that they create, because they notice that there's people interested in that. They just hadn't found it. And this was all about the must-listen to the groups, the Royal Edition that we have here. And I feel that I've talked plenty about these. These are two iconic groups. Amazing in what they did. Beating SHINee and BTS is not easy. For fans of K-pop music or those knowledgeable, in 2017 those two groups were some of the biggest in the world. And especially in Asia, they had a massive pull, and it was really hard to actually overcome them whenever they appeared on the charts. You already knew that if those two names released music at the same time as your favorite artist was not going to rank number one ever. So it was awesome to see Quartet Night beating SHINee and seeing Trigger beating BTS, which, once again, it is insane. And it was all done in the same year. 2017 was magical. It was the opening of the doors for 2D music projects to be taken seriously, for people to start looking at 2D music projects as real music, and to see SEIYUU as more than just voice actors. They are amazing at everything that includes using their voice, basically. And some of those SEIYUU are unbelievably good singers. Thank God most of them actually debuted as solo artists or already had solo careers, because they are talented and they deserve it. So yeah, this was a really long episode dedicated to fans of pop music. If you are into pop music and you want to check 2D groups, you can and should start with these two. They are amazing, and their respective franchises are really filled with quality. They will cater to different fans, so you will understand easily which is your side in terms of the music, or if you are the eclectic type, you will enjoy music from both sides, which is awesome. So yeah, this was all from me. I would love to know from your end, which songs or albums would you recommend from each artist, because we have plenty of other episodes about other 2D groups. So yeah, I would love to know which albums or songs you would recommend from Trigger, if you are a fan of Trigger, or Quartet Night, if you are a fan of Quartet Night. Especially if you were saying, oh, look, these are the best songs that you can listen to if you are a newcomer to the music and never heard Quartet Night or Trigger in their lives. So I would love to see those suggestions and see what you think about these. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and if you are on a streaming platform, don't forget to like this podcast or basically review it. It's fairly simple to do, takes 15 seconds and you're ready to go. And if you are watching these on YouTube, don't forget to give a thumbs up. It helps a ton to get more exposure for this podcast and to get more people to know what I'm doing here, and to basically share with everyone else everything that we have here on the channel about male SEIYUU artists and 2D groups. Once again, for newcomers as well as for veteran fans of male SEIYUU and 2D groups. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.